Good evening. Welcome to the Tuesday, March 30, 2021 meeting of the Longmeadow School Committee. Per Governor Baker's order, suspend certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20. The public will not be able to physically access the school committee meeting. School committee is using the Zoom meeting platform to conduct this meeting. LCTV is live streaming the meeting on Channel 12, and a recording of the meeting will be posted to the LCTV YouTube channel as soon as possible after the meeting. Just a reminder that all votes while participating remotely must be made by roll call vote. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First up, correspondence. Kevin.
Thank you, Ryan. Following correspondence was recorded. An emailed message from Ms. Erin Lau received on March 18th concerning the recent violence toward Asian Americans. An email and backup materials from Mr. Peter Landon, Chair of the Audit Committee, concerning a study of Chapter 70 distributions as mandated by the Student Opportunity Act.
Thank you. Our next item is a possible motion on our minutes.
I move that the school committee approve the minutes for the March 16th, 2021 school committee meeting as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Kevin?
Abstain.
Brown?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Gianna?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Susie?
Yes.
And yes for me. That passes 6, 1 abstention. Next up is visitor comments. If you are here to speak, please use the reactions icon or the hand up in the participants so that I can see you and call on you. All right. Don't see any visitor comments. School committee announcements and recognitions. Gianna?
Thank you, Ryan. I just wanted to congratulate and celebrate all of the student athletes who participated in the indoor-outdoor track meet last week. The sun was shining, it was awesome. And of course, great displays of athleticism. But the thing that should be most celebrated is how they were cheering for each other and they were cheering for Ludlow students as well, which was awesome.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll move on to our business with guests. Principal Nelson, I believe you have some students here for us tonight.
All right, sorry, I was just waiting to be unmuted. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting us. I know when we went to the school committee retreat, I think it was back in August or September, we gathered in the BTC and we talked about student presentations, and it seemed like a wild idea that we would never be able to get off the ground this year with everything else that we had going on. But I'm really excited to have our peer leaders here tonight and to be able to share with you all of the exciting things that they've been able to work on throughout this pandemic. They are led by Mr. Will Sullivan, who is our 8th grade civics teacher. This year he's pinch hitting for us and also teaching one section of 7th grade social studies, which is geography. And then we also have Mrs. Tucker, who is our school adjustment counselor. So they together teach our peer leadership class. And although there's many more students in the class, the 8 students that we have gathered here tonight are going to share with you some of the projects they've been working on. And what I think is most impressive is that the projects are their own thinking, their own doing. It's what they're passionate about. It's what they believe we need to do better as a school community. So all of this work is coming from the students, the student voice, and really they are the ones that bring these ideas to Mr. Sullivan and Mrs. Tucker, and then ultimately to myself and Mrs. Crow. And then we're able to share it with the entire school community. And we've been able to share some of these wonderful projects with Glenbrook this year as well. And I really just hats off to all the kids so quickly. I want to introduce Aidan, Luca, Thomas, Emma, Sophia, Lily, Emma, Zainab, and Francesca. And if I can just also say two quick things about Zainab and Francesca while I have them. Zainab also represents Williams on the school council, and she represented the district on our CLE work. So she was part of that team. She was one of the students who really helped us and dug into that data and really analyzed all of the information that we looked at to hopefully be able to produce some great work going forward. Francesca is our Project 351 representative. So Francesca, for the community of Longmeadow, every year we get to nominate one 8th grade student to represent our town across the Commonwealth. And Francesca was very highly nominated for that role and graciously accepted, and she's representing us really well. And she will be sharing some information about a community project that she's bringing to Williams in the coming weeks / towards like April, May-ish timeframe. So while I had them here, I wanted to also say a special thank you to those two wonderful students who are representing us in many ways across the district this year. And without further ado, Mr. Sullivan and Mrs. Tucker, I'll turn it over to you guys to introduce our students.
Awesome. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah, all right. Well, thank you so much for having us. Like Dr. Nelson said, I'm Mr. Sullivan. Ms. Tucker and I have run peer leadership for the last 2 years. Last year, we were fortunate to have, I think, 27 outstanding peer leaders. This year, we have 18, and we have 9 of them with us tonight. And we're going to turn it over to them so they can present their projects.
And if I could just jump in, Mr. Sullivan, I'm guessing you want me to share the slide deck that your students put together? I'll pull that up.
Yes, please.
Okay.
They're probably gonna have to let Diane know who's trying to speak so she can unmute them.
Okay.
I added their names to the top of the slides for who's going to be sharing, so hopefully that might help a little bit too.
Okay. The version I have may or may not have that. I'm not sure when you added that, so I'll share what I have here and we'll take it from there. Okay. Oh, there it is. Excellent. So we'll start with Luca.
Hello, I'm Luca Baresi. Can you all hear me okay? All right. So what is peer leadership? Peer leadership is a group that meets during our advisories. We discuss ways to help our school and the people in it. Our vision at the beginning of the year, we state that we as the peer leaders will serve as role models for the other students at Williams Middle School. We will listen and support the needs of our fellow students. We will always be available to help in any way we can. We want to peer lead mentors for the students in younger grades so that when they become 8th graders, they will be ready to become a peer leader. We promise to demonstrate strong leadership, respect, and responsibility. Our goal is to help improve the school as a community. Through this opportunity, we can learn leadership skills and cooperation. And it will be a great way to help us with similar opportunities in the future. Furthermore, it is an opportunity to give back to our teachers and school as a way of appreciation and gratitude for all that we have learned. We want to help the school out with activities and make it more accepting and fun learning environment for students and teachers alike. As a team, we can help make Williams a positive learning experience for everyone. Now, some of the things that we've done this year, so far this year, we have sent out a form to all the students of Williams Middle School, asking them about how they are doing during this crazy school year. We have also started many different projects that will help our school along with the students and staff. In this presentation, we will talk to you about each individual project. Thank you.
So, hi, I'm Francesca. Can you hear me? Okay, so the high school students that are in peer leadership asked us to create a lesson to teach our fellow students about how to be anti-racist and how to be more aware. And the students in our group volunteered in the classrooms that wanted a leader to help teach the lesson. So over the 2-day period, students learned about the history, watched videos, and talked about different scenarios and discussion questions. And after this lesson, they could also take an optional pledge to learn, stop, and speak up. And this lesson was also provided to Glenbrook students, and it will be taught during advisories or social study classes. And these are some of the posters that kids made at the end of lesson 2. And now they're like hanging up in the school so people see them.
Hi, I'm Emma C. Can you all hear me? Good, thank you. A few months ago, we sent out a survey to the students of Williams Middle School to see how they were feeling about school this year. Based off of the results of the survey, peer leadership has started some projects to help make certain aspects of school better. Some questions we asked were, do you feel safe in school with the COVID-19 guidelines in place? Do you feel comfortable talking with your teachers if you have a problem? Do you feel comfortable around your peers? How many hours do you spend on social media each day? And how stressed do you feel because of school?
Hi, I'm Emma K. I'm going to give an overview of our first project, the Getting to Know the Teachers. From the survey we made at the beginning of the year, more than 50% of students said they did not know their teachers very well, and 25% of students are not comfortable asking their teachers for help. This presented us with a problem because students should feel comfortable to ask for help. We came up with a project to solve this problem. We sent out questions to teachers to get to know them better. Some examples of these questions are, what is your favorite catchphrase, or what is the craziest thing on your bucket list? These questions allow students to relate to their teachers and feel more comfortable with them. A few of our peer leaders created a slideshow with the teachers' answers to these questions. This slideshow is played on the monitor in front of the office as well as the school website. This way, students have a chance to learn about their teachers while walking into school or on their way to class.
Hi, I'm Lily Henry. Can you all hear me? All right, good. Okay, so I was a part of the Screen Time Project, which focused on how much time kids actually spend on electronics nowadays. And it also focuses on the side effects of electronics, facts on electronics, and healthy alternatives to electronics. To promote healthy alternatives in our school, we created a competition between the advisories. So when an advisory would send in physical evidence, like a picture or a login of a healthy alternative other than on electronics, we would give them points. And the advisory with the most points at the end of the competition would win a prize.
Hi, I'm Sophia. Can you guys hear me okay? All right. So I'm part of the social media group, and this project is all about making sure that everyone is aware of what they're doing online and how it's impacting their self-image and mental health. Our group made a Kahoot and joined 8 classes so far to have them play the Kahoot. Many more have signed up. The classes went well, and the kids learned a lot about and learned some very surprising statistics and information. At the beginning of the year, the peer leaders sent out a survey with a bunch of questions and used most of that data in our project. Some of the data from the survey that we use is that 65% of students say they spend more than 2 hours a day on social media, and 20% of students say it impacts their self-image.
Hi, I'm Zainab S. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. So, as previously stated, the Peer Leadership Advisory sent out a survey a few months back. Data from that survey concluded that 40.4% of the students said that stress level was high or very high, and 51% of the students said that school is getting harder since the beginning of the year. In result, we all agreed that it would be a good idea to create a presentation on managing stress. The presentation is about what stress is, how to manage stress, and one of the main causes of stress among students, which is procrastination. A pros and cons list of procrastination is included in the slideshow, as well as common ways of dealing with stress. In the presentation, we included our personal experiences because those can help you connect with your audience and also have a strong impact. A couple of the peer leaders and myself have been and will be administering this presentation to students during their advisory blocks.
Hi, I'm Thomas. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, I'll be talking to you about Group 5, the X-Block group. Earlier in the year, as you've heard before, the peer leaders took a survey and only 53% of the students at WMS feel comfortable with their peers. Many especially commented that they were separated from their friends due to the cohort system. And this project sprouted from a brainstorming session about how to reduce stress in the students, and we came up with the idea that they'll have the opportunity to meet up with friends or even someone new during X-Block and into lunch, with it being monitored by the peer leaders and teachers. We meet outside and are socially distant from one another. It's happening every possible Tuesday and Friday in trimester 3 after March 26th. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Aidan. Can everybody hear me? Okay. My group is the Courtyard group, and we've decided that we want to redo the Courtyard because it takes up a large portion of our school, but it's rarely used. We want it to be a place for learning, lunch, and friends to hang out and study. We have the support of our school's administration, and we plan to present to PreK and give them our ideas. We are looking for sponsors to donate to our cause, and we are going to add picnic tables, a garden, and more.
Thank you all. That was fantastic. Committee members, anyone with comments or a question for our presenters? Yeah.
Thank you, Ryan. It's not a question. I just really wanted to say thank you all for your leadership and for your community service and just, just being dedicated to helping your peers and helping others and helping the schools and the community. Great job, and you are appreciated.
Thank you. Susie?
Similarly, I don't necessarily have a question. I'm just wanted to thank you. I was very impressed with the way in which you use the survey data to make very strategic decisions about how to help students at the schools. So I'm really impressed with that, and I just wanted to say thank you for your efforts.
Bronwyn?
Thank you. Marty, can you go back to the slide about the courtyard? Right there, thanks. Also to everybody, these projects and presentations seem amazing, and the students and staff are fortunate to have such a great group as their peer leaders at Williams. Aidan, I was just wondering, when you said you're looking for sponsors to donate to our cause, how would people go about doing that in case people are wondering?
If you'd like to contact Williams, let us know that you're interested, and hopefully we can get back to you. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you, Bronwyn. I was going to have the same question. Nicole?
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for coming out and sharing all of this with us tonight. And kudos to you guys for doing so much work that is focused on building community in your school. I love how all of these things, all of this data and all of the research and all of these projects are really ways to bring people together again. And that's such an important thing this year. So thank you for all the hard work you guys have put into this. We really appreciate it.
Kevin?
Yeah, I also want to add my voice of thanks and very impressive work. This is hard to do in a normal year, and the fact that you guys are doing it now is super impressive. And also a shout out to your advisors. I mean, I know they're working hard to help you make this possible. I guess the question I have, I would love to hear from you. I mean, we don't hear a lot from middle school students. We have high school students who we meet with pretty regularly. I would love to hear from you about your thoughts about the plans to get back into school more in the coming weeks, and just, what do you guys think about that? What do you think? What do your peers think? We'd love to hear your voices.
I think Emma has her hand raised. Emma, if you want to, Diane, if you can unmute Emma Servasio.
I think coming into school would be a great thing. For me, I know I learn a lot better when I'm in school and you can see people and, you're with the teacher face to face. So I think with the right safety precautions, it's a great thing.
Diane, Sophie?
Yeah, I agree with Emma. I think it's a great idea. And especially having the cohorts together is going to be really nice, being able to see everybody.
And I'll just add, I think one of the things that came out of the survey was that they weren't with their peer groups because of the split of the cohorts this year. When we brought the 6th graders back last week, it was like you just saw this renewed hope and joy in all of the students because there were peers that they hadn't seen since last March. Or maybe they've seen out on a sports field or in another activity in the town or community, but they haven't been in a classroom together or in a cafeteria together. So I think that's what our 7th and 8th graders are really looking forward to, being reunited with those peers that they have not sat in a classroom with or in a school building with for over a year, and looking forward to that opportunity to connect for connection once again.
Thank you. Anyone else with any comments? Marty?
So thanks to Principal Nelson, and as you see, this work also extends over to Glenbrook as well. The survey work that happened at Williams also happened at Glenbrook, and they used it to inform their services to the students as well. And I'm especially pleased that the students have used their voices to take on the cause of anti-racism. It's clearly a goal that we all share. It was a commitment that this school committee made back in August, at the same time that the committee also said we want to hear student voices on some of these topics. So it's really a perfect opportunity. And it's refreshing. We've had so many meetings where we've been mired in the details of coming back to school and cohorting and transportation, and it's really feels normal and regular. And so I'm so appreciative that the students joined us tonight, and proud of the work that they've done in so many really critical areas. So thank you, Principal Nelson, Mr. Sullivan, Ms. Tucker, and thanks to all the students. Great job.
Thank you all. I just want to echo what Marty just said and wrap up. Although we enjoy the presentation that your teachers and your principals very often come and give us, no offense to them, we would rather hear about the programs and what's going on in the schools from the students. You guys are better presenters. So we'd rather have the students come more often. As Principal Nelson noted, we asked for that. We appreciate you all coming. We think it was great. And we love hearing from you. So thank you very much. We look forward to you being on the high school student council and coming to report to us in future years. Thank you all. Our next item for business are administrative reports. Marty?
To supplement my administrative report, I've asked my good friend and colleague, Chief John Dearborn. So the chief has joined the meeting, and I've got a few areas to report on tonight. And to echo what we were just saying, much of what I say hopefully feels a little bit more typical of the types of reports that I would offer. So just give me a second. I'd like to pull up my report for you. So I'll start with the two items that are relevant to Chief Dearborn's presence with us tonight, and that is sort of COVID and health and safety report. I think we are we're concerned across the schools and the town that we're starting to see a slight uptick in COVID cases. I know the committee is well aware of the times when we have positive cases in our schools and the close contact investigations that follow that. And so we've seen an uptick, and perhaps Chief Dearborn can shed some light on what the townwide experience is, but that's something that we, we're continuing to monitor, and we want it to continue to inform our work. I will say that there's a couple of things I want to touch on that again, the chief can help us out with. One is the state's travel order was recently sort of downgraded to a travel advisory. And without getting into the details tonight, I would want to notify the committee and the community that our intention is still to approach that travel advisory as a requirement for our staff and for our families. In other words, we will, and I'll communicate this out to our families in the days ahead, but we would still ask that families adhere to the standards of that travel advisory and provide us with the documentation that we're abiding by that. It's a critical component of our overall safety. And the other thing, well, why don't I stop there, and then I also want to just touch on pooled testing. Chief, I know this is something that you've talked about on the town side as well, the new travel advisory from the state. So if there's any light that you can shed on that, and if there's any light you can shed on just the overall COVID trends in town, I think that might be helpful to all of us.
Yeah, thank you, Marty. Thank you to the committee. Good evening once again. Someday I won't have to show up anymore, right?
Always welcome.
Yes. So we had a lot of discussion on the town side regarding the travel, the changes in the travel to an advisory. We felt it was good practice to keep our workplaces safe, to still adhere to the advisory for our town side employees. And I certainly shared that with Marty, both town manager and I did. We discussed with the COVID team, and I think our COVID team, we were all in agreement that we felt it was a good policy for school side employees and also for the students and family, just to continue to keep a layer of safety in the schools. We have seen travel related issues in the past. We certainly want to avoid that and support the school in returning to as close to normal as possible. So that was our thought process on that. As far as the community numbers, we actually dipped down in the green a couple weeks ago, which was great. It was kind of hopeful. But we're seeing a very slow uptick over the last week and a half. We were down in the very low teens, and we're approaching 28 or so active cases in town. So we're watching it closely. We are a little bit concerned. I think with some of the reopening things, that's contributing to that aspect. Certainly we have our concerns about spring break and travel and things like that. So we'll continue to monitor and report forward as we go. So anything else?
The other issue that the chief and I wanted to touch upon tonight related to pool testing. And so the good news associated with the COVID trends is that we're still able to say that there has been no evidence of any in-school transmission. So, and I'm pleased that our staff and families are really taking the necessary steps to keep all of us safe. And that includes staff being creative about finding vaccination appointments, but it also includes families being willing to seek out testing when they suspect that there might be a COVID incident affecting their household. So we appreciate that, and our families are really great about accessing the increasing availability of PCR-based tests. So that's been very encouraging. And so Related to that note is we've talked a little bit about pooled testing here at the committee, and it's something that we have spent considerable time studying and trying to understand its appropriateness for us here in Longmeadow. And after considerable discussion, we have concluded that the need of the program, our needs rather, the soundness of the program, the outcomes that the program could deliver, that it really doesn't match our expectations and our standards. There certainly have been a lot of media reports associated with pooled testing, and yet when we really dig into it, we find that certainly in the Connecticut River Valley, there are very few participating districts. There are many out east. There's about 80 some odd districts by my count that are actively participating. There are many more that are signed up that are sort of in the state that we're in, that are reviewing and studying, but there are fewer districts that are actively participating, and nearly none in the Connecticut River Valley outside of the urban areas. So while we are concerned about some of the slow uptick that the chief described, we don't think that the program is a match for us, given the number of incidences in town and the lack of in-school transmission. Certainly that, the willingness of our families to seek out and access PCR testing has been, really helpful and beneficial to us to make sure that we're able to avoid any in-school transmission. In my conversations with superintendents from districts that have participated, they've seen fairly low participation rates, that particularly among staff. In one case in Amherst, for example, they actually discontinued their participation because they simply weren't getting the consent rates from families. As the committee knows, and as we've discussed, the pool testing involves grouping students together in a pool. That pool is tested, and then if there were a positive test in that pool, then the pool members would be subject to a rapid, it's called a Binex Now test. And then if that Binex Now test yields a positive, then there has to be a full final PCR test. So there's really sort of three tests that have to happen to drill down from the pool down to a particular individual in that pool. I think what we're concerned about here, especially in Western Mass, is the turnaround time. The lab tests, my understanding is the lab tests are couriered out to the eastern part of the state. And the other piece of this is the reliability of that Binex Now testing. And so, that rapid testing that has to occur at sort of stage 2, there's concerns about the reliability of that and whether or not it yields proper results. So, I think the bottom line for us is that, our needs here locally, given our trends and given our numbers, don't really match the efficacy of the program or the outcomes that we would want. There is one final point, is that talking to a DESE official recently, I had asked about the potential for this as a tool perhaps next year, when perhaps we're at a place where staff are more fully vaccinated and perhaps children may not be. The DESE official did confirm for me that she thought there would be some testing involved, maybe some screening is probably a better way of saying it, next year, but that it probably wouldn't be this particular pool testing. So, aside from we're always willing to roll up our sleeves and do the work. This is incredibly labor intensive and it is incredibly costly. But aside from those things, I think in our discussions with town health officials and our discussions administratively and the work that we've done to study this with other districts, it doesn't seem to be a match for us. So I just wanted to sort of bring that to the committee and again, Chief, if there's something that I'm missing or you want to add to that, whatever information that
that you want to supplement that with would be helpful.
Yeah, so I concur with everything Marty reported. The one of the issues, well, the two big issues that my colleagues are expressing are certainly the consent issues and the lack of participation to make it a useful tool. That's been problematic everywhere. And then the turnaround for the testing. So by the time you get through the courier process, test results, the BINEX test, and the BINEX test, the jury, in my mind, the jury is still out on that test. As it's not as useful as a tool as everyone had hoped it would be. There's the communities that have participated that have much higher positivity rates than us are actually coming back, and the governor's office reported a 0.76 positivity rate for the schools that were participating. And those are mainly communities that have much higher positivity rates. But if you just compare that to the state average of that was reported this week of 2.55% positivity, it really points to the fact that in-school transmission, it's few and far between. So that's an interesting piece of data. It kind of tends to what I think we already knew in our community, and our positivity rate in our community is much lower than the state average. So I concur with the superintendent. I don't see the value at this point. Our DPH call earlier this week, they did say they were looking at a different tool for the next school year rather than this. So there must be some concern if I'm reading into that. So
I know this is thank you, Chief, for that. And I think, just to, we feel that obviously mitigation is incredibly important to us, but, we feel that our mitigation efforts can be better directed in a way that kind of matches our local realities here. But I know that this has come up from time to time with the committee, and I thought it might be helpful to pause on my report and see if you have any questions for the chief or I, if there's anything else you want us to explore with that.
Do I have a question? Kevin?
Yeah, Marty and Chief Dearborn, thank you. That was definitely very helpful. I know I've been getting questions from community members about what the status is, and so having this update is super helpful. And I definitely appreciate all the time that both of you and your staffs have put into learning more about this. So that was very helpful. I guess the one question I have, Chief, kind of gets to your point about communities that have more spread. This makes more sense. I guess I'm curious, what would be the threshold? Like, I guess that's two questions. So what would be the threshold? And is it possible if we say, no, we're not interested now, to come back in a month if something crazy happens to say, hey, we actually want in now?
I think I can answer the first part. So we spend a lot of time, and I shouldn't say we, I think a public health nurse and certainly Marty's nurses or the school nurses spend a lot of time on looking at the cases that do come across. And I think if we started to see obvious evidence of in-school spread issue, we'd want to revisit this. We'd probably revisit a lot of things, but I think that would be a trigger. For me to certainly start that conversation, it probably wouldn't even be me. I think it'd be Marty and his team would start the conversation back with us on it. But we do spend a lot of time watchdogging that, and I think that would be one of the triggers. And certainly if we got into another major surge, but again, other things are going to probably change before this is even necessary in that case. So and Marty, I'm not sure about the re-engagement of it.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I maybe the best way to say this is not now, but not never. So I think we would be able to re-engage. The state does appear to be committed to this for at least this school year. And so they have not closed the window. We actually have applied. We've been paired with a vendor. So in that sense, we're in a go position. If we did need to activate, my recommendation would be to really pair with the vendor on sort of a soup to nuts basis, that we would work with them from to use their resources and staffing to do the testing, to do the courier work, to administer the Buy Next Now testing, and to follow up with families on the PCR testing. So I think it's we've learned a lot about it, and I would say that we're ready to go if need be.
Any other questions?
So a couple other items for you tonight. The Wolf Swamp principal search, we're actively looking to identify a great successor to Ms. Pratt at Wolf Swamp. We have put together a screening committee. Screening committee has developed questions. I thank Mr. Kelly for representing your committee on that committee. And we've we started with our first round of interviews last night. We'll have some additional first round interviews tomorrow. Our hope is that we will identify finalists by April 7th or 8th. My intention would be to invite a small number of finalists to Longmeadow to come to Wolf Swamp, to meet with the staff in a less formal setting, and to meet with families, to give people an opportunity to ask questions and meet and greet the finalists. And then the hope is that we would collect feedback from that more informal round, and that I would be in a position to make a decision in the first week of May. I always like to introduce candidates publicly for the first time, or the chosen candidate for the first time at a school committee meeting. So roughly, I've sort of targeted your meeting on May 13th to introduce the next principal of Wolf Swamp to the community. So again, thank you to Ryan for participating, and it's a significant amount of time. I think we had a fair process that, we developed questions that are reflective of the interests of that screening committee, and we're off and running. So end of year events, it feels like just moments ago that we talked in this room and at other meetings about how we're going to hold a graduation for the class of 2020, and now here we are trying to understand what a graduation for the class of 2021 will look like tentatively. And as everybody knows, things are subject to change this year. We are tentatively planning and anticipating an in-person graduation for the class of 2021 using the athletic stadium. Still trying to understand what the allowance will be for guests and overall capacity at that event. And kudos to Mr. Landers and the high school admin team for working with parents to try to plan some special end of year events for our seniors, including the senior social. We're even tentatively drawing up some plans for a prom, but we honestly can't overpromise on that. We don't know what that will look like. We are awaiting guidance from the state on that event. The commissioner has said that would be forthcoming soon. And then similarly, we're looking at some outdoor events to elevate our 5th graders to 6th grade, our 8th graders to 9th grade. So, we've learned to be creative this year and work within the constraints that the pandemic presents to make these events special for kids and families. So all those end of year events are proceeding quickly. Sports, not sure if you have any questions on that. The fall 2 season has commenced. March football, never thought I'd say that. March high school football. And the Lancers hosting a home game at East Longmeadow. So thank you to our partners over in East Longmeadow for lending their turf to us. They have an artificial turf field that is safe to play on during this fall 2 season for football. Indoor track has hosted their outdoor meets. Yes, that's the type of year we're having, right? Where indoor track is being held outdoors, but Gianna mentioned that earlier, cheerleading. We're trying to plan some competitions for them. No word on wrestling. That had been postponed to the spring. We're not sure if that will happen. I know we have some wrestling fans amongst us here, so we'll try to understand what that might look like. And then also, good news is that our families, our fans will have a greater opportunity to attend events this spring. The cap has been lifted on in many ways, although we still have some overall capacity limits that we have to pay attention to. So sports are off and running. I anticipate that the spring sport season will feel very familiar to all of our student athletes. There'll be sectional tournaments and there'll be state tournaments. So that's great news. Later on tonight, we will give you a preliminary report on the findings of the equity audit. So that's soon to come. And then also, I think we ought to carve out some time to present the findings of the facilities condition assessment report to the community. This is the study that Colliers did on our 2 middle schools and really gave us some really fresh data on the facility-related needs of our 2 middle schools. We had a chance to meet with the Colliers team last week. They're finalizing the report, and we hope to bring that to this committee on April 13th. So if there's anything in particular that you'd like to know about our middle schools, let us know, and we'll let the Colliers team know. I think they'll be with us that night, along with Nick Gigantis, our facilities director. So a lot going on. As I said earlier, some of the items in this report feel normal and typical, and that's a great feeling for all of us. So thanks so much. Happy to answer any questions you might have on any of these items.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Dearborn.
Thank you, Chief. For my report, I was also going to talk about the Wolf Swamp hiring situation. That goes too much. I just want to let everybody know that the teachers and parents on the hiring committee are representing the Wolf Swamp community very well. There's good questions, and throughout the whole process, coming up with the questions and talking about what they're looking for in their next principal. They're doing a great job for Wolf Swamp, so we look forward to that process continuing tomorrow night. That's it for me. Maxim, do you have a student report?
Yes. So I'm just going to mention a few clubs. First off, NHS, the National Honor Society at Longmeadow High School, has successfully held the 2 induction ceremonies I talked about last week or 2 weeks ago. For the incoming members, it was recorded by LCTV as well, and the video can be found on YouTube for the people who couldn't attend, as well as relatives who would want to watch it. This year, NHS at Longmeadow is pretty unique in holding a ceremony, since in many other schools and surrounding towns, they dropped in, they just mailed the certificates to the inductees. Everything went smoothly, and the NHS would like to especially thank Mr. Landers, English teacher, Mr. Weil, club advisor, Mr. Little, and LCTV for spending their time to make it possible. Then I'd like to mention the Climate Change Club, who have been working to get volunteers for their Earth Day Spring Cleanup event on April 11th. And they currently have 300 volunteers just in total with the town. And the last club I'll be talking about as School Match Wits, it's the LHS Trivia Club. They competed in a tournament in early March with 2 teams virtually. And they have another upcoming tournament April 6th. And then lastly, I wanted to mention the class of 2022, which donated $500 to the following charities / nonprofits: Jambo Tanzania, the Longmeadow Food Pantry, and St. Jude's Children's Hospital. The 2022 class officers hand-delivered the checks to both Dr. Mary Banda, who is the founder of Jambo Tanzania and is a Longmeadow resident, and the Longmeadow Food Pantry. The LHS class of 2022 voted collectively and collectively decided to donate to these 3 charities. So that's something they did that was awesome. And that's all.
Thank you, Maxim. For other reports, Bronwyn, do you have a report from LPVC?
I did want to mention that LPVEC students recently competed in the Skills USA competition, and one of our Longmeadow students, Olivia Klazak, was a gold medalist in medical math. So congratulations to her. Very proud of her. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Jamie or Kevin, any reports from your committees? Kevin?
Yeah, so the Energy and Sustainability Committee, we met and Maxim already talked about one of the big agenda items for us, which is that April 11th Earth Day cleanup. So again, just a shout out to the community if people are interested in getting involved in that. It's going to be a really impressive community event. So we hope folks will be engaged in that. And the other one, though not directly related to the schools, I think is important for the community to hear about is we're working very hard on solar projects. So trying to get a big solar array that could be where the old DPW is or other open spaces in town so that we can have some, net zero energy generation in town. So that's something that I hope we'll have more to report on. That's what we're up to.
Excellent. Thank you, Kevin. Subcommittees. Next up is Finance Sub. Oh, I'm sorry. What I missed?
I was just hoping to ask a question about, I don't know if this would fall under energy and sustainability. So I'm a student and we have in school right now currently the windows open, and I understand that that's a regulation. I was wondering if there is any work to be done to look into how much energy that goes away towards when we have the windows open and heating going on, or vice versa. I was just wondering if that's being looked at. Just as a student, like I sit right next to it, it feels like there's a lot of air moving through.
Who's taking that answer?
Yeah, I mean, Maxim, we can take a look at that. I mean, I can report that we most certainly have seen an increase in the amount of natural gas that we're using based on the ventilation guidelines that we're following to maximize airflow. So, but I can at least report on the increase in the amount of therms that we use this year a little later once we get through the heating season.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mazza. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Finance sub-report. Tom?
Thank you, Ryan, and good evening, everyone. So tonight, Finance Sub met a little earlier. There were a couple of items that made it onto the school committee agenda. We have had a discussion in regards to the establishment of the preschool rate for the 21-22 school year. After some discussion, the finance subcommittee recommended school committee establish a rate of $2,100. The current rate is $2,000. It has been that rate since fiscal year 2012. So it's been about 10 years since the rate has been increased. We also had a discussion in regards to maybe referring to policy subcommittee for considering whether or not the rates for fees going up every year should be tied to some factor, so that it's not necessarily on any one committee trying to figure out what's a reasonable increase as costs go up to related services. So they did make a recommendation to increase it $100 for the fiscal year 2022. So there's a motion. I don't know if you want me to keep going or if you want to see if there's interest in.
All right, I'm sitting the wrong button trying to unmute. Is there any interest in making this motion and having discussion on this at this point?
I'm happy to make the motion, Ryan.
Go ahead, Kevin. Thank you.
I move that the school committee approve the pre-K rate of $2,100 for the 2021-2022 school year.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I will mention something from our subcommittee conversation if nobody else has a question. Our reasoning for this was, if you look at the previous increases, they are large. So it goes from like a $500 jump back in 2012. So committee after committee, year after year, it's no, let's don't touch it, let's don't touch it. And then costs have gone up so much that 5 or 6 or 7, or in this case, 8 years later, a group will look at it and say, oh man, we got to raise the price a lot. So it's tough luck for the people with pre-K kids in that particular year when the committee realized that costs are gone up. So the idea that we were talking about is if it is tied to whether it's increases, some sort of increases in costs with the town, some sort of percentage, maybe policy will look at that, that it would make more sense. It would always be small increases rather than a big shocking increase for whichever group of families comes up in that particular year. So that was our rationale. Jamie?
One other thing to mention too, I completely agree, Ryan. I'm glad you said that. As long as the policy sub were to look at it, I'm perfectly fine with the 2,100. Just so everybody's aware too, we are fairly competitive price-wise compared to the surrounding towns. So we did look at that as well and use that as a basis. So, we are definitely below most surrounding towns. So making sure policy sub looks at this and we have some sort of plan going forward would be appropriate. But as Ryan said, I think going up in a small increment, completely appropriate, and going up any more than that, I think is kind of out of line with how we should be doing things.
Kevin?
So just to be clear, we haven't raised the tuition in 10 years. And so we're having a 5% increase after 9 years of being stable. So that seems pretty reasonable. And so I like the idea of in the future, just saying we're going to raise it by 1%, 2%, whatever it is every year. That seems completely reasonable. And Tom, can you just remind us how many pre-K kids we have?
We have about 65 students, of which about half of them pay the fee. It's a peer model program. So those students in the peer model role pay the tuition rate that's established by the committee.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote on the motion. Kevin?
Yes.
Bradley?
Yes.
Yes.
Tiana?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Susie?
Yes.
And yes for me. Motion passes. Tom?
So there are a couple other items. The establishment of the bus fee for the 21-22 school year. We're going to bring back some additional information to Finance Sub for consideration before they are ready to make a recommendation. So you will see that on a future agenda. And in your packets are a couple budget reports from fiscal year 21, our current fiscal year, showing you where we currently are with some projections for your the general fund budget and our revolving accounts. So just updates that Finance Subcommittee also reviewed earlier this evening. That's it.
Any questions? Just quick summary, Tom. How are you feeling about those reports that you presented to everybody?
I think they're where I expect them to be. I incorporated the resources, the investment that school committee voted earlier this year. So those are in the projection. Their best guess. I think I say that every time I give you a report. It's my best guess as to where I think things will go over the course of the next 3 months. So I think we're on target in terms of where we expect where we should be at this point in the year.
Excellent. Thank you. Kevin?
So Tom, I just wonder if you give us a quick update on the money from the federal government. Is that something that we would expect to happen next fiscal year, or do we have any idea what's going to happen with that money?
So the ESSER 2 funds, which we spoke a little bit about during our budget presentation, we will have to submit a grant application for those funds. I would expect those to be part of the FY22. We would revise our budget at some point next fiscal year to accept those funds. We're still waiting on the allocation that we'll receive under the American Rescue Plan. There's some talk it'll be about twice the amount of what we received in ESSER 2 funds. So again, I would expect that we'll have to submit an application kind of outlining how we'll use those funds Both of them have at least a 2-year period of time in which you can use them. So they can be used in 22 or 23. And we're actually waiting to hear about the second allocation, the American Rescue Plan funding, in terms of how long and what the restrictions will be in regards to utilizing those funds.
And so just as we get comments from the community, that money's not going to have any benefit to this year's budget. We're thinking about the following 2 years.
Correct. It would be in fiscal 22 and 23.
Any other questions for Finance Sub?
Yeah, just to clarify, this year's budget, meaning the one we're finishing in June, it won't have an effect, but this upcoming years, it will, potentially will, because we don't really know as to what's going to come in at, correct? So just to clarify, this 2 months, it's not going to have any effect on, but the one that we're going to start in June, it will.
Correct. We have the allocation under the ESSER 2 funds, and we will be submitting a grant application for utilization in FY22, which starts July 1, 2021. Okay.
Anybody else? Okay. Policy Sub, we have a meeting scheduled for the 8th. Any other report? Curriculum met on March 22nd. Oh, sorry, Jamie, go ahead.
Can I just ask that we unmute? So can I just ask that we add the earlier comments to that agenda? What we talked about with regards to the fees, to at least have a discussion to the policy, please.
So to clarify for Mr. Gigantis, to have the policy subcommittee consider a policy that that governs the annual fee increases associated with some of our programs. Thank you for that. Yeah.
The curriculum have a report from the March 22nd meeting.
We discussed a few items. Actually, I'll hand it over to Sue and let her kind of review what those items were. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, everybody. We talked about some elementary PD that has been going on, designed to meet the needs of all learners at Blueberry Hill. We talked about our preliminary plans for universally designed lessons for next year for professional development. We talked about our continued commitment for standards-based learning at middle school. Also spoke to potential curriculum reviews for the 21-22 school year, middle school ELA, elementary school math, early phase of middle school math, and elementary school history and social science. So those are potential deep dives into the curriculum for next year in those areas. We talked about the career education coordinator, and we have hired Erin Corbett, and she'll start. Marty, maybe you have some more information on her start date pretty soon.
April 1,
Okay.
she's scheduled to start.
Yeah, that's pretty soon.
Yeah.
And we have a meeting with her next week to talk about some things that we've been thinking about. And we gave a summer school update. We hired a new coordinator to the enrichment program and for some academic programming as well. Separate from the special education program, John Wills is a history teacher over at Glenbrook Middle School, and he's jumped in with both feet and some arms, and we've started to do that. He did an all-call for enrichment courses yesterday, and I believe he's got some response, so that's great. And we are hoping to engage in an acceleration academy for students who want to, probably closer after some thought to the start of next school year. So that get kids in who want to come in or whose parents want them to come in and get some refreshing and shoring up before the next school year starts, especially in the transition years from 8 to 9 and 5 to 6. So
I think that was it. Susie, anything else?
Yeah, I think, we had a discussion about, amidst all of that, how the district will, sort of be identifying students for potential summer school opportunities, potentially given, the cadence and disruption of this school year. And while everybody's done a fantastic job within the, constraints of what we've been facing in this pandemic, we certainly want to recognize and, support learners in a way that, if there have been any gaps or if there's needs for, supporting them to build the skills prior to next year, that we can do that. So that's what I really liked what Sue shared around like what the plans were potentially for summer school and how we can kind of make that attractive to learners who really want to take advantage of it. It's hard to get people in the summer, but if we can make it engaging, we'd like to do that for sure. But it's also, we want to see what the real impact has been as well, because we see, as an educator myself, in the literature, and especially in professional literature around education, there's a lot of talk about learning loss, and during the pandemic, and we need to know if that's real. So that was a conversation we had as well, is like, how can we maybe take a look at the assessment data from the iReady assessments, just to understand where students are at. And as we mentioned in the last meeting around, wanting to not support the MCAS this year, we have data already that's definitely more reliable than any MCAS would be. So.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for curriculum? Okay. Next up, ongoing business, school calendar. Marty?
Sure. So we needed to clear up essentially that we had designated on the calendar that you had reviewed and approved. We had previously designated Rosh Hashanah as needing to be observed on September 8th. In fact, it should have been September 7th. So we apologize for that error. And so the calendar before you tonight designates September 7th, 2021 as the proper day to observe Rosh Hashanah. Actually backs up to Labor Day, so it makes for a more continuity that week early in the school year. So there is a proposed motion in your agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Go ahead.
I move that the school committee approve the 2021-2022 school calendar as revised on March 9th, 2021.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Call for a vote. Kevin?
Yes.
Bronwyn?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Gianna?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Susie?
Yes.
Next up, school committee meeting dates. You want to leave them there?
Sure. So appreciate Mrs. Gigantis bringing this to our attention. The town election this year is being held on Tuesday, the 22nd, 2 years later than in past years. Or your original meeting calendar had meetings scheduled for Thursday, June 10th and Tuesday, June 22nd. And so the reason is that we're bumping up on Tuesday is that the school committee meetings had historically been on Mondays, but in more recent years, we've held them on Tuesdays. So your meeting on that week, I suppose, and Diana asked for your help on this, the meeting could conceivably be moved to Monday, the 21st. Is that what we had in mind?
Yes, so the meeting, the meeting on the 10th is a Thursday. I don't know if you want to go back to make that a Tuesday like you've been following all year and make it June 8th. And then have your second meeting of the month of June the night before the election. have the election, and then you'd start the new year reorganizing.
Any thoughts? Oh, Kevin has one.
I like the consistency of having meetings on Tuesdays.
Thumbs up for general thumbs up, I see. Diane?
Well, can I say something? Okay, so if you do stick with Tuesdays, it still poses the issue for June 22nd. June 22nd is election day. Customarily, we have held, back when they were on Mondays, that didn't pose an issue. Now that it's Tuesday, we had changed the calendar so that you would have your second meeting this month for the June. You shouldn't be the 22nd. You could have it any other day that week, but you shouldn't have it on the 22nd. You do have to move that one.
You could move it to Monday.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you could move it to Monday, the 21st. I think moving it before the town elections makes sense. It's always a scramble to have a school committee meeting sort of immediately following, like the next day following a town election. I think to have it the day before makes sense. You wrap up business, you wish farewell to anybody that, perhaps might be leaving the committee, perhaps not. And then after that, you'd have an opportunity to welcome any new members.
Seems logical. Thumbs up.
Okay, great.
We approve of that idea.
Do we have to vote?
Do we put on changing that, Diane, or we just change our calendar because it's so far away, it's fine? We're good.
Yeah.
She can't hear you.
Diane, do we have to vote?
You don't have to vote. It's a scheduling thing, but I couldn't hear that last bit. What did you decide?
To move it to Monday. New business.
Did we move the Thursday one to Tuesday? Okay, so we're making two changes.
Diane? Oh. Diane, you got both of those? All right, fantastic. New business, tuition student request.
We had received, so annually you set a tuition rate for students that are tuitioned into the district from out of state. This is only allowable for students coming from out of state. Students from other Massachusetts towns cannot tuition into the district. You have a policy that requires that rate to be set annually. And along with that is a policy that asks the principal to review and recommend, for the superintendent to review and recommend, and then ultimately the school committee needs to accept that student in on a tuition basis. So we had a family that had asked to tuition in their student from Connecticut. It was either Suffield or Summers. I apologize, I don't remember off the top of my head. But Mr. Landers met with the family. Seems like it'll be a great fit. And our recommendation would be to accept that student in on the basis of the tuition rate that you have set.
Thank you. Would anybody like to make a motion?
We'll do it. I move that the school committee accept a new tuition student at Longmeadow High School beginning in the 2021-2022 school year in grade 9.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I don't see any. I'll call for a vote. Kevin?
Yes.
Ronald?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Gianna?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Susie?
Yes.
And yes for me. Welcome to our new student. School choice in Metco.
Can I ask Mr. Mazza to take this on? It was discussed at Finance Sub earlier.
So, yeah, tonight you have on your agenda motions for creating slots for next school year in both the school choice and Medco program. I'll start with the school choice program. We currently have 44 students in the program. We will have 2 students who will be departing the program at the for next year. So we have a recommendation to add 2 slots in next fiscal year at grade 9. So that would keep the same number of students that we currently have in the program for FY22.
Does anybody have any questions for Tom about that? I don't see any, Tom. Oh, I'm sorry, Gianna, go ahead.
Thanks, Ryan. Tom, sorry if you explained this previously. How is the determination for grade 9 made?
We looked at the graduating class with the number of students in the incoming 9th grade, and knowing the capacity we will have at the high school to accommodate those seats. And also, I think in some respects, we're looking at Medco and bringing them in kindergarten, which we'll talk about in a minute. But we felt that it's kind of a more certainty in terms of the number of students we'll have in the rising 9th grade next year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Anyone else? Possible motion if someone's interested?
I move that the school committee approve opening seats for school choice students in the 2021-2022 grade as follows: grade 9, 2 seats.
Any seconds?
Second.
Any discussion? Saying none, I call for a vote. Kevin?
Yes.
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Gianna?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Susie?
Yes.
And yes for me. Motion passes. Tom?
I would just add that there will be an application on the district's website in a few days. Diane will get that up. So interested parties will be able to fill out the app and submit it. And there'll be a lottery sometime later this spring for the 2 slots. In regards to Medco, Finance Sub also considered slots for next year. And they have consensus was to open up a total of 8 slots. So 4 for the 4 kindergarten slots, 2 at 6th grade, and 2 at 9th grade. Medco program provides an opportunity for students from Springfield to go to a participating district to receive their education there. Once they're accepted into that district, they remain as a member of that district, provided they remain a resident of Springfield. So we currently have 31 students that are here through the Medco program. We have 1 student graduating this year, so that would bring us down to 30, and a recommendation to add 8 slots, which will bring the total number up to 38, assuming the remaining participants all stay in the district. It is a grant program through the state of Massachusetts, so we're allocated based on transportation and the number of students that are in the program. And the students, again, are selected through a lottery, which is conducted in Springfield. I don't know if I'm missing anything, Sue. Okay. So I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Anybody with a question? Nicole?
Are all 8 of those slots at the kindergarten level? The only one I see was 4 at grade kindergarten. I'm curious if the others are there as well.
At Finance Sub, when the discussion was to add some additional slots, with the uncertainty of what the kindergarten enrollment will be next year, we opted to do 2 at 6th grade and 2 at 9th grade for a total of 8.
Thank you.
So the motion would have to be revised if it's read.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ryan. Tom, how many did we add any last year? I don't remember.
Two. Sue's holding up the two. I believe we added two in kindergarten at the beginning of this school year. Only one student came, one backed out because of
COVID. So,
Wow, so we went from 2 to 8.
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's all right. Thank you, guys.
I think we had, I think it's fair to say that, the discussion among the committee members at Finance Sub was that this is really tied to your goals relating to promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion in Longmeadow Public Schools. So, and I think our administrative team felt similarly that, we wanted to strengthen our commitment to the METCO program. So especially relative to the choice slots that we've opened up. And so I think we're all looking forward to kind of reinvigorating the program with the additional slots that the finance subcommittee reviewed this evening. So.
Any other questions? Anybody want to make a motion?
I will. I move on the recommendation of the Finance Subcommittee that the school committee accept students in the METCO program for the 2021-2022 school year in the following grade levels and numbers of seats. Grade kindergarten, number of seats 4, grade 6, number of seats 2, and grade 9, number of seats 2.
Second.
Any discussion? Deanna?
Sorry. So when Susie read it, she said accepts and then these numbers. But do we have other students? Like, should it be accepts these new? I'm not.
Yeah, I think the motion represents new slots that will be opened up for next school year, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, I just want to make it sure that the existing students are still covered.
They're already part of the program.
Okay.
Yeah, the motion doesn't have to add or create slots for them for next year.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Call for a vote. Kevin?
Yes.
Bronwyn?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Susie?
Yes.
And yes for me. Motion passes. Next up, we have the report from PreK.
So for a long time now, we've been updating the community on our partnership with the Center for Leadership in Educational Equity. And this was a partnership that we started back in, this was February of 2020, I guess it was. And so since that time, they've been engaged with us on what is best described as an equity audit. And I want to thank Sue for kind of being our point person on this and for really being the point of contact for the Center for Leadership and Educational Equity. And we had through a number of different vehicles, through focus group interviews, through staff and family surveys, through some data dives, the CLE has come up with a set of recommendations, a very robust report that will guide our work in this area going forward. And so the report is sort of fresh on our desks. It's over 100 pages long, but we wanted to provide you with a preliminary report on the findings at a very high level. We won't dive too deep tonight, but our intention is to bring it back to you in a more detailed fashion. And obviously, the findings will inform our strategic goals, our strategic objectives going forward. So we're really pleased to bring this forward, and it represents the culmination of a long partnership with CLE. And I think Sue is going to take us through the report, and I will do a screen share as soon as I pull up the document. So you want to add any introductory comments while I pull it up?
I think, Marty, safe to say that even the report that we have is in draft form.
right? We were just able to meet with them briefly on Friday afternoon to talk about some of the challenges, at least that I had with the report, not the content, but the design of it. So even the one we have is a draft. And so what we're going to show you tonight is a really, as Marty likes to call it, a 30,000 foot view of what we have. Let me try to share it, Marty.
I got it, Sue. Thanks. Give me 1 second.
Okay, I just want to, while we're waiting, maybe a special thank you to the Equity Audit Committee. Some of you were on it, and we had members of over 20. We met lots of times. We grappled with lots of quantitative and qualitative data, and ultimately the recommendations are a result of that audit committee's work being facilitated by CLE. So lots of work. So thank you for all of that, all the students and families, and it was great.
Let me try again. So you want to pull it up?
Yeah, give it a shot. Is that there on screen? Yep. Probably also important to mention that the report kind of showed up at this incredibly urgent time in history with our trial happening in Minneapolis and the recent Atlanta murder. So kind of keeping that in mind as we do this work. So off the bat, sorry, there were some priority areas identified, mostly coming out of stakeholder surveys. The stakeholders consisted of our staff, our students, our families, and the most important really is to develop a culture where every staff, student, and family feels valued and safe. And I don't want to read these to you, but to strengthen our ability to support students' social emotional skills and empathy. And we will use these to target professional development for next year, among other things, and then to strengthen educator ability to teach students from all cultures and diverse backgrounds. There were several indicators that we rated as an audit committee and came up with some areas of strength. Not surprising is overall student achievement. Even our subgroups outperform the state by generally lots on different assessments. Our efforts in setting direction for safe, inclusive learning environment, and our educators' desire really to do work in this area is really strong. Areas for improvement are just what we thought. We want to strive for equal outcomes for underrepresented groups of students, and academically, social, emotionally, and there was some discrepant data related to discipline. Boys more than girls, special needs students, more than typical students. So we'll dive into that as well, among other things, but these were the things that kind of rose to the top. And sorry, I can't get my, this was neat work kind of as CLE listened to our focus groups and our empathy interviews, they pulled out target themes. So they listened for themes that occurred over and over again, and they pulled them out. And the themes are neither positive nor negative necessarily in the conversation, but important themes for us to be aware of as we go forth in our planning. Culturally conscious practices, our capacity to teach all students, the importance of relationships, and the importance of inclusiveness. So those are 4 themes that we'll really definitely highlight as we move forward to plan our next public school improvement plan, Marty, our district and school goals, or in our professional development.
Yeah, thank you for that, Sue. And I think what I would want to underscore a couple things is the eagerness of our staff to expand their capacity in these areas, and yet also an acknowledgement that we have some work to do. And I thought the richest part of our experience with CLE was the focus and empathy group interviews that we did. So our administrative team sat down with students from underrepresented groups and really tried to understand their experience here in Longmeadow. And it was really eye-opening, I think, for all of us, and a reminder that we need to double down in our efforts to make families feel welcome and valued. And so there was, I think, we'll all read the report and we'll share it with you when it is finalized, and we would appreciate your thoughts and feedback as well. And I suspect you'll want it to inform the goals that you set for yourself next year. But I think in the area of expanding our capacity, our educator capacity, our administrative capacity to support and include all students, I think that was a key component for me. And then also just, really ensuring that families feel welcomed and valued in everything that we do. And that's a work that engages all of us, everyone, our custodians, our clerical staff, our teachers, our administrators. We all need to be conscious of that and be committed to creating that culture that CLE has identified as important, not just in terms of inclusiveness, but if we're truly committed to academic achievement, this is something that will drive that as well. So again, this is sort of high level, 30,000-foot view of the report. We wanted to, we're proud of the work that we've done with CLE. We're proud that it will provide us with some direction going forward. And we look forward to diving deeper into the report and sharing some additional thoughts and conclusions with you. But happy to answer any questions that you might have at this early stage as well.
Any questions at this point? Cool.
I just wanted to say thank you. It was really an honor to participate in the committee, and really a big thank you to our students and family members and staff who took the time to participate, for their time and their energy and openness. It was really meaningful to hear from community members about those experiences, and I'm really looking forward to continuing with that work. It was a very excellent experience. I'm curious if the entire report, I know you were saying, would be made available to us. Will that at some point be something that the community will be able to look at as well?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yes, I can't see why not. I mean, I think it would be great for the entire community to have an opportunity to look at it, especially, we'll make sure that there's a really tight executive summary that, really is accessible to all members of this community, from us administratively, the school committee, families, everybody. So that's a great question. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, I wanted to echo what Nicole was saying about the experience of being on the committee. And Superintendent, I also wanted to ask, do you think you'll be reconvening us as a group?
That was, I think we heard that from the steering group, that they wanted to get the band back together. So we'll probably do that without our partners from CLE. As we said, we sort of were ready to take the training wheels off and ready to, kind of move on our own. So we'd like to do that. We would, once the report is complete and it's in a place where we think it's clear and accessible to everybody, we'll get everybody back together. So I appreciate that suggestion.
Great, thank you.
It was a great group.
Susie?
Thank you for the initial report. I'm curious just where you see this, how you see this being integrated, connected with the vision of the graduate and, the renewed vision, sort of as you're still building that vision of success for, Longmeadow, where do you see the intersection of this within that those ideas and strategies moving forward?
Yeah, so I would say that's a great question, and I'd like some time to give that some additional thought, but I think that's something that really ought to be front and center for us. Is that these are the competencies that we want to see in our students. We want to see them be prepared to work and succeed in a world that is diverse and equitable and inclusive. So I think I love the question, and I think we need to think about how we're going to integrate the findings of this report into our strategic planning going forward. And we frankly have some work to do in the area of strategic planning. We've had, some of our strategic work has been on hold. And so we need to really, get re-engaged with that work. Our administrators are eager to do that. They're eager to talk about this, to talk about MTSS, tiered systems of support, the vision of the graduate, all those big strategic objectives that we want to figure out how to define those more clearly and bring coherence to all of them so that we have some clear direction for all of us as a learning community. So great question.
Yeah.
No precise answer yet,
No.
but definitely appreciate the question.
Yeah, and again, my intention was not to say, but I don't think any school has been able to work on their strategic plan this year. At least in my line of work, everyone comes to me and says we had to abandon our strategic plan for the year. So that wasn't the intent, but I think this is the start of some, from what I see here, again, the 30,000 foot level, but certainly the rich process that you had provides like significant foundational information from which to build, a pretty robust planning and strategies around this work. And I think, really when you're reading this, and if you do any of this work, what it all comes down to is that the educational culture in here for our learners just has to be, we have to provide everyone with a sense of real deep belonging. They need to feel like they are part and parcel of this community. Every single person, every single educator, learner needs to be validated and needs to have their identity, integrated into the fabric of our work. That's how I read it. That's how I hear it. And I think that's just the work of supporting all of us as humans as we develop and grow.
Well said. Absolutely. Yeah.
Also like to thank you for the idea that this is going to continue without the folks from CLE. I think we saw earlier tonight, a group of 8th graders were showing that they and their classmates are ready and able and willing and really want to do the anti-racism work. So this information will inform their work, the future peer leaders, and the fact that we recognize that it's ongoing and not, we had a year with one group who helped us create a report. So I'm glad to hear that as well. Are there any other questions? Sue?
Not a question, just a kind of a comment. I just feel like we are super lucky because even with all the stuff we had going on for the pandemic, we were able to engage Better Lesson and Anti-Racist PD. We have one coming up Thursday. We have more than what we paid for folks who are wanted to be coached. They have had excellent coaching experiences. They're sharing out on Thursday. So I feel like, we were lucky to get almost a jump start on this. So just kudos to everybody who stepped up to the plate for that.
Any other questions or comments? Gianna?
Thanks, Ryan. I just wanted to also just point out that for me anyway, it was enlightening because at first when I think of equity and equality, I think of the anti-racism stuff, but this also had a lot to do with students with learning disabilities and other groups that might fall into this category. So thank you for that, Sue. Just wanted to point that out.
Excellent, thank you. If there are no other comments, we have a possible motion.
I can do it. I move that the school committee meet in executive session pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21, purpose 2, conduct a strategy session in preparation with collective bargaining with units A, B, C, D, E, F, H, and purpose 7, consideration of release of executive session minutes of previous meetings, not to reconvene into open session.
Is there a second?
Second.
Again, this would be, is there any discussion? This will be to meet in executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Purpose 2, to conduct a strategy session in preparation with collective bargaining with units A, B, C, D, E, F, H, and Purpose 7, consideration of release of executive session minutes of previous meetings, not to reconvene into open session. We'll have a roll call vote. Kevin?
Yes.
Bronwyn?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Gianna?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Susie?
Yes.
And yes for me. We are adjourned to executive session.